everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon, a podcast. Long time no see for what, the fifth time?
Oh, no, yeah.
But to be fair, there were some problems behind the scenes.
There were.
Not between us. Nothing
Oh,
can ever
never.
come between us. No,
Never.
no, 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 no. Two problems that kind of prevented us from recording stuff and also editing stuff from like October to now when you guys are listening to this in the month of December. Essentially, I had some more health issues. What's new? But to the point where possibly narcoleptic. So that's new. But I have to do more testing, and it took a while to figure out a routine and to get on some medication to kind of help me not, no joke, take 5 to 6 naps a day despite getting full-time sleep. So as you can imagine, doing that, doing school and working and podcasting, very, very difficult during those times. We
Mhm.
also had some technical difficulties on our audio engineer side, where essentially just he was having difficulties in terms of like having good and stable internet connection to be able to do the work. And then even when I tried doing the work, temporarily, I ran into troubles. It was very weird. Like my editors, where every time I had uploaded a piece of that episode in, it was just like, yeah, no, like this is glitched. So it was, I was banging my head against the wall, but finally the editor's fix. Our audio engineer has stable Wi-Fi now, and I'm feeling better. And then we also, obviously, too, Savanna is in, she's in a master's program. I'm in a doctorate program. So, things get also thrown our way through school just so naturally, But isn't it good to be back?
I know. And right before the end of the year, too. It's perfect.
Yeah, so that way we can kind of close 2023 and really start anew, hopefully and consistently, knock on wood, in 2024. Me and Savanna were kind of talking on a recording schedule plan, seeing what works best for us, and just taking it from there. And so this one episode has, no joke, been 3 months in the making. And sadly, it's not like a huge episode where it's like special guests and all this type of stuff. It's just taken us so long to be able to finally reach this point, right?
Yeah, it's been a bit, but like you were saying before, I think in the new year we've had a meeting, guys, and we've established, what works, what doesn't work for us. So I feel like we'll be on a more consistent schedule. And of course, we have a very big episode coming up that's going to be really fun. So I'm excited
Yes,
about that.
because we are approaching episode 100. So we do have something fun in store for episode 100. And who knows, maybe around like the timeline and stuff after we film, I think once we film episode 99, we'll kind of figure out. It may be, luckily, it might fall around with the new year, or at least the first week of the new year. So stay tuned for that.
Woo!
We also active again on the Purple Noon page. We split the Purple Noon Instagram page, and that is our main source of posting. So if you're still relying for us on Twitter/X, I don't know about you, Savanna, but I don't even bother going on Twitter anymore. I
Yeah,
still have
that's
it,
gone.
but it's just I just fell out of like with the platform. I just felt like everything that I wish I was seeing, I wasn't seeing, and instead I was starting to see like everything I couldn't stand, and it just became like so infuriating. So that's why I'm not on Twitter anymore. Like I said, still have the account, but I'm not posting on our Purple Noon account. Where the action's at is our Instagram and on the website,
Yep.
audemicmedia.com. So
Yes.
be sure to keep an eye. And of course, on YouTube as well is where we also have these podcast episodes, as well as Spotify. So if you are not subscribed to any of those platforms and following us on those, please make sure to do so, because 2024 is going to be a fun year. I'm excited to finally go deeper and deeper into our more niche backlog of films that we have in this list. Like we have some pretty cool films coming up for like the next 10 episodes or so, but like
Yeah.
really like niche stuff. Like I have a feeling like even I would consider today's episode niche because
Oh, yeah.
looking up a video review, I found one other person talking about this film.
I never even heard of this film until you showed me. So
So and what's crazy too is I consider myself a unofficial Marlon Brando historian due to
Oh
my
yeah.
fascination of him in his career over the past like 10, 15 years that I've had like the biggest crush on him. And I think he's the best actor of all time, all that fun stuff. So it was really interesting to be able to see this, which is kind of like, because I've seen it before, but it's been 10 years since I've seen it. And it's so interesting to see that a movie like this existed with so many powerhouse actors at the time and everything. But I also wanted to say that I actually discovered, I can't say I discovered, but for me, it was such a shock. It was almost like the, what is it called? The Mandela effect, where all of a sudden I was looking up like Marlon Brando and his IMDb page, and I swear on my life, I found a film I'd never heard of before. And so this is like brand new to me. This is like
Yeah.
insane to me. The fact that like I've recognized and I've almost watched every film in his discography, but I've literally like, because I was looking where this film fell in terms of like the timeline of his acting career. And that's when I discovered a film called Morituri. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
Morituri before?
I've never heard of a lot of these movies
I
before, so
I literally look, I've heard of Sayonara, I've heard of Young
yeah,
Lions, I've
yeah.
heard of Bedtime Story, I've heard of Candy, I've heard of what is it, the Professor, I've heard of all of those types of films with Brando. I don't know how this one, and so I'm really interested to check it out because I literally have no clue what it is. It essentially is a Brando film from 1965 called
Ooh.
Morituri. And it not only stars Brando, but it also stars Yul Brenner, which I never would have guessed that they were in a film together. Um, so I'm really interested, and I think maybe between some point, like within the next few months, I definitely think I want to see this because I've literally this is new. Look, Marlon Brando's been dead for 20 years. Okay, it'll be 20 years next year. Do you know what it's like for
Oh my
me, a
god.
Marlon Brando aficionado, to find something new with that isn't a documentary? So I'm excited. I'm very excited, and I can't believe that I did not know this. So awesome benefit to watching this movie today because I probably wouldn't have figured it out until like maybe months and months later on.
I think we can definitely fit this on the list. Now, speaking of the list, very quickly, we haven't updated that list. That list is the same since we first started doing the podcast. Can you believe that?
I know, which well, because here's the thing: we haven't changed it because the amount of hours I put into that
Oh,
list,
I
I don't
understand.
want to change it.
I
So
don't, yeah.
we have like a ton of things that like have been mentioned, like, and also it's kind of a good thing because we also have things that maybe were at trend or being talked about at one point but
Yeah.
haven't been talked about in like 3 or 4 years, which I kind of like. I kind of like revisiting things when they're out of their peak because I feel like you're able to give a more like authentic and a more brutal, if it needs to be brutal, opinion on it. So we have like quite a lot. Now I did take a sneak peek and see what our next film is going to be. And Savannah, you are going to be all over our next film because our next film is going to be talking about 1962's Lolita.
I got like pages of notes, guys. I'm ready.
I know. So that's going to be a great one. This is her last day in Paris.
This is my last
So
Hangover Paris.
I'm very excited because I've actually never read Lolita or seen any of the Lolita films. So this is going to be like my first time diving into it. So I'm very excited to pick your brain because I always know Lolita's kind of one of those films that have kind of like with me and my little like psychosexual films over the past few years that have kind of like lingered in your mind or like have been brought up and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to like pique your interest and kind of like dive in and ask some questions about like what that film like means to you and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a really, really fun episode. But for today's episode, today we're actually going to be focusing on 1966, The Chase. Now, I said that this was a powerhouse film, and that is because your three main stars are Marlon Brando, Jane Fonda, and Robert Redford. Very surprising considering no one's seen this movie. So
Yeah.
you also have Robert Duvall. You also have Angie Dickinson, E.G. Marshall. Like it's got a pretty sizable cast in it overall. But of course, your big three being Brando, Redford, and Fonda. But the plot of this film is essentially it is a citizens of a Texas town become concerned and panic when a local bad boy escapes prison and heads home for his hometown. This is directed by Arthur Penn. It is based off a book. I believe the book was written by Lillian Hellman and then was adapted by Horton Foote. And yeah, so Savanna, so like I said, I had already seen this film 10 years ago. So what was your initial impression about this film?
So I have a lot of really positive things to say about this movie, but the first thing I do want to say is this is the perfect movie for a sort of a reboot, like a redoing of it. What am I thinking of? What's the word?
Yeah, like a remake or a reboot.
Remake. And I know we're very tired of remakes right now, but I do feel like this has all the potential for a a remake because it's such a great premise and there's such great acting. And I really love the world building, for example, in this movie. However, I do think for such a really interesting film talking about like the themes they're having, which we'll get into later, there's something missing. And I couldn't put my finger on it for a while, but we'll get into it later. And I really feel like this story would be great revamped.
Yeah.
However, I say that with a little bit of a grain of rice because this cast is fantastic. They're amazing. It's like a Marvel movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
stacked. I was like, Duvall is in this. Like everybody was in this.
Yeah.
So that's I guess an element that you can't replace. However, I do think this movie would benefit from a remake because I really like the story. What
I'm all for remakes taking something and adding on it or building anew from it. So like something like this, it's a little bit outdated and clearly
Mhm.
no one knows about it because it wasn't a success. So
Yes.
and whether that could be due to the the advertisement for the film or the fact that maybe this just wasn't a film enjoyed by people at the time. I do feel like the bare bones of this movie is great. I think instead of remaking, like, I don't understand why our film culture, I'll say it's not really a culture, but I'll call it like our film. I'll just say film culture for now. Our film, like
Yeah.
our the way that we view film is so fixated on remaking and rebooting things that already worked. Meanwhile, I think that it makes more sense to reboot and remake things that need a second chance,
Mhm.
that not only pay homage to the original, but also right the wrongs of the original, whether it be due to technical issues or budget issues, whatever it may be. So I do think the bare bones of this could easily be made into something more modern, but I do think it needs still that flair that this film has. And I get what you're saying because it's hard to pinpoint where that flair is. And that flair might just be within your three main leads, you know?
Mhm.
So I think it could be done, but someone would have to have a fond appreciation of this movie in order to do it right.
Yeah, because I think there are elements here. Like for example, I really like the story building, the world building. This movie really takes its time to introduce us to everybody in town
Yeah.
and sort of pique our interest in the characters. And there's drama, okay? Um, so the first 30 minutes of this movie is very solid. There's just something
Yes.
that happens in the middle and something that happens in the end that sort of like slows everything down. And I don't know. It's again, I love the idea of, this hypocritical town and like these people are wild and crazy. Like, first of all, little side note, did everybody hate their spouse in the 60s? Because this is like the fourth movie we've seen where everybody hates their significant
I
other.
guess, because like everyone was just cheating on everyone. And like it was like one of those things where it was blatant. It wasn't even like hidden and stuff. It was like, working at the bank and then, woman's like, oh yeah, your wife's an idiot. It's just like,
Like,
what? Like, like ease up. Like, but I totally get what you're saying, but it's, this film is really, it reminds me, the closest thing that I could think of in terms of a film from this decade, from 1966, that kind of resembles the mishmash ensemble that's going on, the first thing that I thought was it's a mad, 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 mad world.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it has a bunch of really interesting characters. But I do think a fault of this film is we only get to understand these characters to a point. And
Yeah.
it feels like maybe it was just spread a little too thin. Because one thing that I felt watching this movie was by the end of it, I was like, so what the hell did Robert Duvall have to do with all this?
Oh,
Like
okay.
I was thinking like some of these characters, I'm like, cool, I just saw their backstory and like you pretty much just told me everyone in this town is cheating on each other, but you didn't really give me solid people to connect me to the main storyline.
So correct me. This is what I took out of it. And again, I was a little bit confused too. And it took me to like rewind a little bit. So I thought essentially this was saying like, the whole town was judgy and critical. And they were really worried about Robert Redford's character, Bubba. I don't know. The
They
accents.
call him Bubby, but for some reason its name on the IMDb page is Bubber,
I
like
don't know
with
if
an
it was an
R.
accent thing. Yeah, I'm not, whatever. It seemed like they were all concerned about him when everyone, this
They need to
town
be
is,
focused on themselves.
they're in shambles. And what I thought Duvall's character represented, and again, I don't feel like they did a good job because he didn't do anything in the movie. I thought he was somebody that represented like, oh, like I know everything's wrong, but I'm just not going to do anything about it because he knew his wife was like the town, sorry for my language, but the town slut, and
Yeah, yeah.
he knew all this stuff was going on. It was bad, but he was just kind of like a coward. But again, I just felt like,
Yeah, he kind of provided like a voice of reason, but
but did
without being
nothing.
smart and vocal.
I don't know if that was the point. It's a good point, but they didn't utilize him. And I think you hit it on the nose. I just think it's because we don't take the time to get to know every single character. And it maybe gives us 15 minutes of being like, okay, here's this person, here's what they do, here's what they represent. And it's not enough time for what the theme is trying to tell us of the movie. It's not enough time.
Yeah, and it's not enough time to establish the main connections that we want to focus on. So I feel like in this film, it's very funny because Marlon Brando being the forefront, being the sheriff and everything, really has no skin in the game when it comes to the drama. He's kind of just acting as like typical law enforcement that's just
Yeah.
trying to intervene this very entitled neighborhood. And as soon as alcohol gets thrown into the mix, holy crap, the entitlement goes insane. Where now you have these group of men like, Eeny, Meeny, Miny, and Mo. I don't know their names. They didn't introduce them
No,
well. But
yeah.
all of a sudden they think that they're top dogs and now they're grilling, sadly, every black person that they see. And it's like, whoa, relax, guy.
But
Like, is this
that
necessary?
was no, but that is another problem of the movie. It's trying to say a lot, right? It's trying to talk about racial tension. It's trying to talk about class. I
Yeah.
think at one point they had a really good thing talking about like Val Rogers' son, so that like the town honcho, whatever, his
Yeah.
son was had some issues with his wife, and I noticed like 2 or 3 times children were brought up and they would get uncomfortable. And I'm like, what a great point to make about like the struggles of having kids or whatever, but they don't make the point. They just kind of make you like, is that a problem? Are we talking about race? Are we talking about class? They kind of just lightly touch on these things.
Yeah.
But again, it's a time issue. And I also feel like it might have been like a safety issue because
I
this
think
came out around the time where things were a little
Yeah,
bit
this is a little
hostile.
bit this is before, I believe, what the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1968. So let me double check. Civil Rights Act. I could be wrong. I am not I am not a Okay, so
Around that time.
this is right after the time. And maybe because it wanted, like, you can definitely tell this film is progressive for the time, and namely in so that the way
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have Marlon Brando's character treats black actors on screen, as well as you have, like, I think people forget how much like in terms of like performance, how some black actors were like made to do a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. How they were made to do like a voice or something like that. And it feels like a step in the right direction at that point in time, but I don't think they could be as authentic as they wanted to be.
No, I don't know. Another there's some positives of this movie. I'll talk a little bit more about the positives before I kind of like dive more deep into what's the issue. There are some really good moments in this movie. I really like the sort of struggle between Val Rogers' son and his wife. There's a really great scene where they're dancing and they're being like, it's a very intimate song, very intimate dance, but they're just being very cold and open about like their living situation. Like, so they're
Mm-hmm.
both having affairs. I really like that. Um, I liked the idea of the criminal's wife and the criminal's best friend having an affair. Peak drama, right?
Yes, yes. I think that was honestly one of the best segments of it, like because that created, because also I think they did a fantastic job introducing their relationship
Oh yeah.
before revealing that Jane Fonda's character was in fact Bubba's wife.
No, that was fantastic. Again, the first 30 minutes of this movie, amazing.
And it has a
Um,
really solid introduction. Like
yes.
we get without Robert Redford saying anything, and let's be clear, he barely says anything in this movie. Without him saying anything in the first 10 minutes, we already have an understanding of okay, he is a prisoner. He has been set up by a guy who he tried to escape jail with, and now he's even more screwed and he's struggling and he wants to go back home. So I think they did, and it's filmed really well. Like this whole movie is filmed actually really, really well. And I like some of the creative choices that they did in terms of like directing. But I think it's also one of those things where it's a really big idea. In fact, a little too grand of an idea to be one big thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel like they didn't know what to do with Marlon Brando, which is insane.
You know, you would think with other films that I've seen Brando in during this time where he's not nominated for the roles and stuff, it seems like Brando was too big of a force, and I don't think people knew how to mish and mash him into stories well enough. And that's also on his friggin' fault. This dude was a lazy son of a bitch. No one wants everyone. Oh, Brando was amazing actor. He was, but like, here's my thing. People say Marlon Brando was one of the best method actors. Okay, do you know why Marlon Brando did method acting? I guarantee you, it was because he was lazy. Because in like this movie where he has like a fight scene, they say, oh yeah, he did method acting because he actually told them to like punch him in like slow motion, and then they were going to speed it up, and that's why it looks so good and everything like that. I guarantee you Marlon Brando said, I don't want to rehearse a fight scene, so let's just do this. Because he was known for doing that stuff. Like he was known for like learning lines during filming, where in The Godfather you have Robert Duvall literally having taped lines against his abdomen. So Brando would just look over and be like, "Oh yeah, Don Corleone," and, you know, like that's Brando. He was that type of. I want to say cocky, a little bit on the fly, but it worked. He kind of made
Yeah.
like a whole new form of like lazy natural acting that really, really worked against all these other actors that were trying their damn best in these films. Like, can you imagine going to a set, giving 200%? You've memorized your lines for 6 months. You've been you've been acting it out. You've been practicing and practicing. You have every scene in your head. And then Marlon Brando walks onto set. He says 3 lines that he's reading off of someone's body, and then goes into a canoe on a lake to eat ice cream. He did that. He was that man. And I love him for that. I love that ingenuity. He brought a pizzazz to Hollywood that everyone feared at the time and no one could replicate too. He'd be a jerk if he did that in today's time.
Oh,
But
sure.
because I'm not part of that generation, I could look at that and be like, that's pretty rad. I could look at that and be like, dude, you got balls. I appreciate that.
I don't even think it was probably some of his fault based off what you're saying to me. But it doesn't seem like the script, the dialogue had a lot for him to begin. Yeah, they gave him
Yeah.
little like conundrums because he was in the pocket of this really wealthy man, but it didn't seem like especially like the way the movie like closes his chapter, it didn't seem like it just seemed like he was there to push the plot forward, which is a wild role to give Marlon Brando. Like that is a very strange, and I don't know if it was like an age, like maybe he didn't fit the, because I thought he would have been better in maybe another part of the movie. I don't know. He was older, so maybe that's just the role he fit. But I was just very surprised that they gave this man like very little to do or say. And he's supposed to be one of the main characters.
Well, remember too, like on the waterfront, 10 years prior, at this point he was kind of like a has-been. It was Robert Redford, the up and coming
Right.
rising star that was kind of mostly eyed at. Now, to be fair, Marlon Brando came with a hefty price. So I don't
That's
know. I
true.
looked it up. Marlon Brando for his role in this movie was paid $750,000 in 1966
To do what?
to
To walk around?
mosey
Outfit?
around and be like, "This place is crazy,"
Yeah,
like,
that's it. That's all he did.
and to take a few punches. Literally, but Marlon Brando was also the first actor to ever receive $1 million for a role. And think of it this way, like Savannah, like he got $1 million for The Fugitive kind, which, in my opinion, is even worse role for him because he didn't even stand out in that film. It was Anna Magnani and Joan Woodward that were the big powerhouses of that film. He got like pretty much like paid $1 million to go around looking cool in a snakeskin jacket.
Yeah, no, quite literally this movie too. But also like nobody, in my opinion, like this was nobody's strongest performance as an actor. So
Yeah,
that's
like
what
it.
makes me think it's the script. Like, how do you have Jane Fonda, Robert Redford, Robert Duvall, and Marlon Brando, and this is not a strong performance by anybody? It has to be the movie. It has
And
to be the script.
it's crazy because the strongest performances came from the weakest characters because we knew the
Yeah.
less about them. Like I forgot her character's name, but there's one, I think it was, I can't remember the name, but there was one brunette who was just drunk and she was just very cutthroat. She was the one flirting with Robert Duvall at the bank. And he's like, "Oh, you want your husband here?" And she's like, "Your wife is stupid." Like she was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Like she was strong. Like she carried her role all throughout. But we only got to see that one-sidedness of her, and we really didn't get to know too much about her except the fact that she was committing adultery. So and that was another problem. Like I felt like we were just trying to be introduced to a bunch of characters, and almost like, this would have worked if it was a murder mystery. Getting us involved in all these different characters and trying to figure out who's who would have been great. But because we already knew the truth, we already knew what was going on with Bubby and Robert Redford's character and everything like that. It didn't make sense to have us be introduced to this many people.
No, yeah, especially if we weren't going to like, and because we were introduced to that many people, I feel like the main people we were supposed to focus on, their performance was probably hurt by that. The fact that they didn't have, there just wasn't enough time to explain,
Yeah.
which is very odd because they took their time. The first 30 minutes of the movie, right? Took their time, fantastic world build. The strongest performances are within the 30 minutes like of the people we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the movie is just really rushed. And then the ending is really weird. The ending is the strangest ending I've seen so far.
It is flat. It is a flat ending. It is very lackluster. It is, guys, we've been rolling for too long. How are we going to cut this
That's
together?
exactly how I felt. Like they didn't have any more time or money, and that's what they were left to do.
It was, okay, Brando's got to go. Redford and Fonda got to leave. They got things to do, and this is how it's going to end. So the ending is very lackluster. It's very womp womp. It's just there's nothing to it. There's no closure. And even if it is, it kind of is somewhat of a closure, but it's like like this is where it's just kind of, there was no message. And I not to say that every film needs a message, but like, I think of like a film like Chinatown, where the ending of Chinatown has it's very womp womp, but it's very heavy and it's very like
Yeah.
meaningful and it's very deep and it's very like whoa, like it's stuff. And I felt like they could have done something like that for this and made it a lot deeper. I think also the problem is that we just know that Robert Redford was a vigilante. We do not know anything else about him except that he has a wife that like undoubtedly cares about him, but we don't have a lot more time with him. I think what would have been great is for him to have maybe moments where he's kind of like going through like his memories or going through like who he is a little bit more, maybe having a little bit more warmed up conversations, and we really don't get that from him. So it's like when his ending comes to an end, it's like womp womp, like we don't really care because it's like well, what did you expect? You escaped from the prison system and you got framed for murder. Like it's just very womp womp. That's the best way that I can phrase it. I
But
know that
it's
there's
all
another word for it, but womp womp just feels the
no, it
best.
does feel very womp womp. Nobody learned their lesson. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I feel like the movie is trying to pretend that people learned their lesson here. Nobody learned their lesson. Not
Yeah.
the town. We don't know if Robert Duvall, what happened to him. Marlon Brando took off,
He's
which I
probably just crying on
understand.
the on the front of his bed just about his marriage, you know? That's probably where Robert Duvall's ending.
And then like Jane Fonda just like loses both men. Spoiler: both of the guys she's with
Yeah.
die for little to no reason. By the way, like I
The
don't know
film's
why they.
message, don't be a whore or bad things happen to you.
But yeah,
No, it's
no,
not.
what?
It's
No,
not. But that's
nobody
kind of
got
how I mean,
punished
yeah,
except for
she's the only
her,
one who really suffered.
and like maybe Bubba's parents, but everybody else, it just seemed like well, like okay, Val Rogers, yeah, he lost a son, but like we don't. Again, the problem is we're
Womp
not
womp.
seeing womp womp. That's how it feels though, because we're not seeing the consequences. Like, how do these people live life now, knowing what they did? We don't know the consequences to their actions. We are just left
Yeah.
with, well, this is how it happened, and they're upset, and this is it. Like, that sucks for them. And I'm like, but I didn't learn the lesson. You guys are making me learn this lesson that, like, the consequences for the actors didn't have to, we just end it. So there's no consequences. Everybody's just sad. So I don't know. Again, I think it's just too much, too fast. And this movie could have really done
It
with
could
some
have been
more world
something. It
building.
could have been
Yes, it could have
something.
been
And
something.
not to say that it isn't something now,
It's
but
not. Yeah, no, it is.
it's not going to have like in terms of looking at like and reality is look, when you look at Marlon Brando's by like his whole like discography and everything like that, right? Five bangers.
Yeah, they're not all
Five
bangers.
bangers tops. I say that as an adoration fan, but I've watched them. I've watched him play an Asian man in the Tea House of August Moon, and it was horrible.
Yeah,
I've seen him play an Asian man inside. I feel like that's the worst he's ever done. But he,
probably.
yeah. So, but it's like I've seen him play crazy ass things and do all that type of stuff, and this is still up in the rankings of higher, but it's just not it's not peak Brando. And I feel in a way that Brando was kind of cheapened by Hollywood because they kind of just threw big productions at him, but not big stories. Like if you compare like Brando to maybe like a Charlton Heston or even Robert Redford. Robert Redford and Charlton Heston have way more bangers in terms of films than Brando ever did in his freaking 70-year career.
But yes, there's substance in those careers, right?
Yeah.
Like Robert Redford went on to do so much. He did like The
This was just like the
Natural.
beginning for him. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like this is a great beginning for him, but for mid peak or kind of like coming down from a peak, this is a bit sad for Brando.
They definitely, I think the word you're looking for is like substance. He didn't have
Yes.
a lot of substance in his career. I think they just, like you said, they threw him big projects. They threw him because they knew people wanted to see him. But I think the reason that he's so well renowned as an actor is because when he did get the substantial roles, he knocked it out of the park. He killed it. But it
Yeah.
does suck that like there are so many of these kinds of movies where it's like, oh, this could have been great. This could have been great for him. And it just kind of fell flat. That sucks for sure.
I think people also get confused with stage presence versus actual acting. Marlon Brando in compared to everyone in this film, has the biggest stage presence. There is a way that he carries himself that every
Yeah.
time he is in the room, he can be in the room with every great actor of that time. I guarantee you, eyes are going to be on him because the way he carried himself, he had such an interesting way of speaking compared to everyone in that time. So I feel like even like when he's reading dialogues and stuff, it's his type of voice was so different, very unexpected from a guy of his stature and everything. But he is a tall, enlarged guy who
Yeah.
just has a great stage presence. And I think a lot of directors at the time just thought that that would do the talking, but it doesn't, not all the time.
No, you're completely right. Also, something like a fun fact, this is before also like Jane Fonda's career for a while. In my like I think she did two more movies after this, but then she does Barbarella
Yeah.
like 2 years later. So I
Oh, I
just
thought
feel like
Barbarella was before.
I thought so too. But my point with this is this maybe besides Robert Redford, because he ended up having like and all of them ended up having fantastic careers. I just don't think this movie helped in any way, maybe besides like recognition. That yeah.
Yeah. I think where if you want to follow, literally 1 year later, Robert Redford and Jane Fonda give incredible performances in Barefoot in the Park, and that starts
Right.
the peak of their acting career. That starts the peak of who they are as actors. But it's because you had better writing, you had better chemistry. And not to say that there wasn't some chemistry between them, but there wasn't a chance for it here. They
No.
weren't given that chance in the movie. So I think if I were, okay, hypothetical director's chair, Stephanie. Sorry, my throat made a little gurgly noise. I hope that didn't pick up. I hate, you ever swallow water and then all of a sudden you get like trapped air in your throat and it just goes, "Aria." That's just
Yeah,
what my
yeah.
throat did. So I apologize. Well, okay, this is where I would have done the chase differently. I would have pretty much kept most things similar up until the middle point. Where I think that would benefit this film is the change in ending. What I would have done is I would have made this town of crazies, drunken crazies, do something to the point where Robert Redford is forced to do something horrible. We're essentially making him become a monster that they never hoped he would become. Something that he narrowly escaped and was tied on, now in front of everyone, locking in his fate. No
Mhm.
disclosure of the accident or anything or being framed. Them essentially forcing him to do something crazy. Whether it's they would, try to wrangle him and try to arrest him themselves and he would accidentally kill someone. And then force Brando to kill him.
Oh,
That
that's
is what
really
I
cool.
think would have been great, because then I think that would have had the emotional connection to make sense for Brando and Redford's character now, and for it to kind of come all to an end. And realistically, like this whole like this gang of like college nerds are traveling, all about the town, and like they're harassing the people that don't matter. I think it would have been great if finally they had their connection to Robert Redford by harassing his character, having Robert Redford forced to do something horrible, and then Brando having to act as like judge, jury, and executioner in that moment. And then kind of everyone disbanding and Brando saying his shtick about like how he wants to leave town and all that shit.
Yeah, no, I think just like that's what you're essentially saying though is substance, like you just
Yeah.
give it some crazy.
More
But again,
connection with the characters. A more
yes.
direct A to B type of connection.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think that would have been a much better ending.
But the
You
one
should
thing
remake
that
it.
slaps, I would love to. Um, but the one thing that like is so good in this movie that I feel like is kind of the unsung hero and really brings it all together is the score. Oh my
Oh
god, the
yeah,
score
the
is
score's
so good.
really good.
I no joke, Bestie, tell me I have this soundtrack on CD. Who would have thought to press this on CD in the early 2000s? But I have the soundtrack on CD and it's so good. It's just and I read that it was the composer's first time ever composing for an American film, and holy crap, did he seep America tones and southernness
Oh
into
yeah,
that
he did his
orchestra
research.
and everything, and it was so good. I genuinely think the soundtrack is what makes a lot of the good scenes in this film really elevated, especially that intro is so strong due to cinematography and to that music.
Yeah, no, I agree. Banger.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if there's anything else besides "It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World" that kind of resembles this
I
film.
you know, it did kind of remind me, and it could just be the cheating spouses, and it reminded me a little bit of The Swimmer.
That's a good example. Yes, I can see that because also like the amount of people that you interact with, like the amount of on-screen
Yeah,
characters that are brought in definitely has that. Um, But overall, we already agree that this would be something that we would love to see as a remake. I would love to see it as a remake still set in the 60s. I think it would
I
be,
agree.
I think the theming of it works. I think the way the film works is great. It's really just solidifying those connections and just kind of making it a little bit more seamless. But overall, what would you rate this film?
Um, I would give it probably like a solid 7. Again, I do like the world building. I like the story. I like the acting. I just wish it took its time a little bit more. I wish it had maybe a little bit more of a strong performance from its entourage. I really wish the ending of this movie was different. I think that's something that bothered me a lot because I think I could have put up with everything if if the ending was substantial. But
Yeah.
I do think I was entertained the whole time. Like I was watching, I was never really bored. I was more trying to figure out what was going on. I enjoyed seeing all these actors on screen. I enjoyed the drama. Um and I do think it's something everybody should watch. I very much enjoyed it. I wish it was a little bit better. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with a 6 out of 10 because I do think that there is a hindrance in rewatchability. Now, I
Oh,
am
that
going
is
to add
true.
a little caveat to it. I had watched this film on a app called Sling TV where I connected it to my Apple TV. I don't know if that's how you watch it. If you're gonna watch this film, do not watch it on that app. And here's why: because there's so many freaking advertisements on that app that are like 10 minutes
Oh
each.
no.
This is a 2 hour and 10-minute film. I thought it was 3 hours because that is what the clock said on this thing. So it no, oh my god, this movie is worse if it's feels like a
There's just
three
a bunch of
hours.
commercials.
I literally watched 30 minutes of it last night and then 2 hours of it today and then plus 30 minutes of the advertisements. And I was like, come on, come on. And especially since like the advertisements hit at the most boring moments possible, where it was just more 10 minutes of just so don't watch it on Sling TV. Watch if you're gonna watch this, watch it
Just
all in one
rent
go with
it.
no ads. Oh my god, because I guess I also I'm privileged. I'm not used to ads. Like I don't watch cable or anything like that anymore. So I'm just not used to advertisements. Like I pay for YouTube Premium and all that shit. So when I saw those ads, I was like, oh my god, like it was torturous for this type of film. So pay the $2.99 to rent it from Apple if this is something you would enjoy seeing. I do recommend it still. If you are a fan of older dramas, I think that this is a great pick to watch. I think it's interesting, especially if you are a fan of the top three and even four, if you consider Robert Duvall, of characters where Brando, Redford, and Fonda, if you want to see them in their earlier careers or Brando's mid career, I think it's a really, really great look. Also, I also found out that apparently, for Robert Duvall was kind of really struggling as an actor during this time. And so he says that during this time, this was, and I think this probably reveals where the film went wrong in terms of making sure that people went and saw this film, was they put a lot of money to them actors. Robert Redford in 1966 for this role, being still a no-named actor at this time, okay, made $30,000 in 66 for his small role in this.
Why did they do that? That makes no
I don't know.
sense.
I think it was just because they wanted, because a lot of these other actors were more famous for their earlier careers. So, like, you have like a lot of like the older women were more like big time actors from like the 20s and 30s. So, I think maybe that's why. Also, there's one character that literally is like useless to the story. Her name is Mrs. Briggs. Fun fact, that's Marlon Brando's sister.
Who?
Her name is Mrs. Briggs. She's like an old woman in the video in the movie with like 5 lines, and apparently
Is that the
Brando
lady
was
that's
like,
praying all the time?
"No, no,
Her?
no, 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 no."
Oh.
That was funny though. That was funny. Her going into the house being like, "I have to pray for you," and then just going, "Ah," was so funny. But no, Mrs. Briggs was another character. We literally see her for like a few seconds. I don't even know why. I think they did it because I think Brando was like, "Give my sister a role." But yeah, so if you watch it and you see a character named Mrs. Briggs, that is actually Jocelyn Brando, Marlon Brando's older sister.
That's crazy. They just threw
So,
her in there.
but I do think I don't think it's Criterion worthy. I think if it came with a bunch of bonus features, hell yeah, because I would love to see the making of this film and how it was done and everything. But story wise, and in terms of its like importance and everything, because usually we say, "Would you own it?" and Criterion. This is not a Criterion, and I don't think it should be. But I
No,
would love to.
it's not.
I wish there was more behind the scenes for this because I'm really wondering how a movie like this was filmed, and especially like the behind the scenes dynamic with all these actors, you know?
Yeah, that would have definitely been cool, but I do agree with you. I don't think this is Criterion. And I probably wouldn't grab the DVD because I think you're right, and I'll adjust my score a little bit. I'll give it a 6.7 because I don't want to watch this again. I'm good. I saw it. I know what goes on.
Yeah, and when you compare, it's also if we look at it from a standalone film, it's not bad, it's not great, but it is ahead of its time. Um,
Yeah,
but if you compare it to what these actors have done in the same decade, it really doesn't hold a lot of candles to it.
it does
So,
not. No.
like, I think a little bit earlier, a Brando film that was done, I think, 2 years before, The Fugitive Kind, is way better, way, 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 way better, and that's still an equal performance from Brando, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, but that's a better movie. Like
It
just
is,
in
but
general.
in terms of like, it was a big blockbuster that failed within the same 5 year period. I feel like that one does overall a better job telling a story than this one.
Agreed.
But that is it for The Chase. Now, like I said earlier, our next episode is going to be 1962's Lolita. We also have a fun other few episodes coming up too. I believe we're going to be watching and we're going to be reviewing I'm blanking on the name. I think we're going to be watching our first I don't know how it's pronounced. I think it's
Oh, it's
Tayovsky.
chart. Okay, yes, the mirror, right?
Yes, we're going to be watching The Mirror. So that'll be our first film that we review from that director. So that's going to be exciting. But we also have one of my favorites popping up soon, and that is Blue Velvet. And I'm so excited to be able to have an excuse to watch that movie again. But
That's
I'm
gonna be a
excited.
wild and crazy one.
I'm ecstatic. But I'm also really excited for 1962's Lolita. And as always, thank you to our Patreons. So remember, if you are a Patreon member, no matter what tier, you even our $1 tier, you get a shout out every single time we record an episode. I make sure I keep a little list by me at the end, so I make sure I get everyone. So there's plenty of spots available if you would like to be mentioned in every single episode. Consider doing the dollar tier, literally $1 for every episode until the moment you stop subscribing to us. But thank you to our patrons. We have Manny, Sensei David, Homeboy James, Buddy Ryan, and Danny Boy. Thank you guys so, so much for supporting us, even on our brief hiatus. I sent through a message through Patreon explaining and saying that we are going to come back stronger than ever in 2024. And Savannah, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, as I stated before, our big 100th episode is right around the corner, and I am super excited for that. It's going to be a great one. I think we're going to leave it as a surprise, but please look forward to that. And also thank you to our Patreon, our Patreon peeps, because, and sort of bearing with us these past few months. We really, really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. And anybody that really listens to us, thank you again and bearing with us, because you guys are awesome too. And we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much. And also, I think I had on the YouTube channel, I had made a video, a ramble talking about The Woman Next Door, and Savanna has a great, great, great discussion, a standalone discussion coming up soon. I'm going to be editing that for her, so stay tuned for that because that's going to be really, really fun. I already listened to it and it's so awesome. So I'm excited for you guys to see not only the discussion I did on The Woman Next Door, but Savannah's discussion on the forgotten, I think we can say the forgotten family film, right?
Yes.
And the art of making family movies. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.